The Lady of the Lake. Long time ago, high up in a hollow of the Black Mountains of South Wales, there lived a widow with her only son. He worked the farm and looked after the cattle grazing. The place where the sweetest food was to be found was near a lake called Llyn van Fach, and it was there that the animals wandered whenever they will. One day, when the boy was walking along the lake, he saw a lady who was gliding along the clear, smooth water of the lake. She was the most beautiful creature that he had ever set eyes upon. He stood there, observing. She then stood upon the clear, crystalline water to comb her long hair with a golden comb, the unruffled surface of the lake serving her as a mirror. He was entranced, and straightway knew that he loved her. With nothing else in his hands, he offered her the barley bread that he had for his food. The lady gradually glided towards him, but she refused his offer by shaking her head and saying, "Grasa varra, ned havet vanala." She dived under the water and disappeared from his sight. Full of sorrow, the love-stricken young man returned home and told his mother what happened. As they pondered over the strange words used by the mysterious lady before she plunged out of sight, his mother suggested that there must have been some kind of spell connected with the hard-baked bread, and advised her son to take with him some unbaked dough the next time he went to the lake. Next morning, long before the sun appeared above the crest of the mountain, he was by the lake with the dough in his hand, anxiously waiting for the Lady of the Lake to appear above the surface. The sun rose, scattering with his powerful beams the mists which veiled the high ridges around and mounted high in the heavens. Hour after hour, the young boy watched the waters, but hour after hour there was nothing to be seen except the ripples raised by the breeze and the sunbeams dancing upon them. By the late afternoon, despair had crept over the watcher, and he was on the point of turning his footsteps homeward, when to his intense delight the lady again appeared above the sunlit ripples. She seemed even more beautiful than before. He held out his hand, offering the dough to her, but she avoided him again and refused the gift with a shake of the head as before, adding the words, "Tlaith da varra, tini vana." Then she vanished under the water, but before she sank out of sight, she smiled upon the young man so graciously that his heart became fuller than ever with love. He walked home slowly and sadly. He told his mother what had happened, but she encouraged him and advised him to take half-baked bread to take with him next time he went to the lake. That night he did not sleep, and long before the first twilight, he was walking the margin of the lake with the half-baked bread in his hand, watching its smooth surface even more impatiently than the day before. The sun rose and the rain came, but the young man heeded nothing as he eagerly strained his gaze over the water. Morning wore to afternoon, and afternoon to evening, but nothing met the eyes of the anxious watcher but the waves and the myriad dimples made in them by the rain. The shades of night began to fall, and he was about to depart in sore disappointment, when, casting a last farewell look over the lake, the lady emerged from the water. She seemed lovelier than ever, and he felt most joyful at her appearance. His rapture increased when he saw that she was gradually approaching the land, and he rushed into the water to meet her, holding out the half-baked bread in his hand. She, smiling, took his gift and allowed him to lead her to dry land. Her beauty dazzled him, and for some time he could do nothing but gaze upon her. And as he gazed upon her, he saw that the sandal on her right foot was tied in a peculiar manner. She smiled so graciously upon him and said her name was Nalvarch. He begged her to marry him, and she agreed, but she said that the marriage would only be binding for as long as he did not strike 3 erguidiajos, 3 blows without cause. He could not imagine doing such a thing to one he loved so deeply, and he readily agreed. The next day, the young man and his mother went to the lake, and there was Nelvar with her father, who gave his blessing, and the two were joined. For the dowry, the old man gave his daughter as many sheep, cows, goats, and horses as she wished. When the time came for the lady to count the animals, she began to count by fives as many times as possible in rapid succession until her breath was exhausted. After counting all the animals, the full number came out of the lake when called upon by her father. They went to live at a farm called Myddfai, where they lived for many years in prosperity and happiness, bearing 3 beautiful sons. When the eldest boy was 7 years old, the farmer's cousin was christening her first child. It was in the heat of midsummer, and the farmer was impatient to go. Nelvar was standing by the door and was reluctant to leave. Impatiently, he tapped her on the shoulder and said, "Go, go!" She sadly replied, "You do not see what I see. If we left when you wanted to, our child would have been sick from the heat. Now the clouds have covered the sun, and we may leave, but you have struck me the first blow without cause." When Nelvar bore her second child, and when he was still small, the cousin of the farmer was to get married. They were invited to the wedding, and it was a joyous occasion. In the middle of it all, Nelvar began crying. Afraid that she would disrupt the celebration, he tapped her on the shoulder, saying, "Hush, hush!" She replied, "You do not see what I see. I cry for the great sorrow that is to befall them, and you have struck me the second blow without cause." After the third son was born, the wife of the farmer's cousin died in childbirth, leaving her husband grief-stricken, for the baby died also. The next winter, the cousin was stormed by the snows and died of a wasting sickness. The funeral was a sad affair, but during the ceremony, Nelvar began to laugh. The farmer was shocked and embarrassed, so he tapped her arm, saying, "Stop laughing." She replied, "You do not see what I see. I laugh because his spirit is free from all its pain, cares, and suffering, and you have struck me the third blow without cause. Our marriage is ended." She walked away from him, and though she never quickened her pace, try as he might, he could not catch up with her. When she arrived home, she called her cows and the other animals together, each by name. She called, "Mi olfreg moifreg, mi olfreg winfreg, bedai kai donfreg, argen winebwen arlas again. Tadartaro wen, polise drenen, arjoti ba, sid araba, dereti ajah adre." All of the animals immediately obeyed the summons of their mistress, leaving the fields to follow her. Even a black calf that had been killed and was hanging on a hook came back to life with her call and walked off with the rest of the cows, sheep, goats, and horses at the command of the lady of the lake. It was the spring of the year, and when she passed the field where 4 great oxen were plowing, she called out to them, "Pedwar eition glas, sid aramas, dayok withe, and yah atre." The oxen left the field following her. Away went the whole of the animals with the lady across the mountain to the lake from whence they had come, and disappeared beneath its waters. The only trace they left was the furrow made by the plow which the oxen drew after them into the lake, which remains to this day. The farmer's heart was broken. He never saw his wife ever again, and crushed with sorrow, put an end to his misery by plunging into the depths of the cold water. The three sons missed her so much, but she appeared to them from time to time. She told them that their mission on earth was to relieve the pain and misery of mankind, and she showed them the virtues of the plants and herbs that grew along the mountain and taught them the art of healing. And with that knowledge and their skills, they became very prominent healer physicians in the land. Their descendants practiced medicine throughout an unbroken line until 1743. Locally they are also referred to as the magicians of the Myddfai, and the very last one, Rice Williams M.D., who died in 1842, was the last of the descendants of Llyn and Fach.